The event, the New York Subliners Home Series event, is this weekend. Tons of Call of Duty action, as always, to be featured this weekend on the Call of Duty League channel over on YouTube.com. I'm excited. Another week of action filled Call of Duty to be watched, and this is a video I've wanted to do for a while. I know I say that with a lot of my videos, but most of them it's kind of it's the truth, really. For all of them, pretty much, it's the truth. There's a lot of videos that I've really been wanting to do, and I've just never got to them. But now that we're on the complete motivated train that everybody needs to be getting on for some reason that they're not, I don't know why. We are going to be building our own bracket and making bracket predictions for the New York Subliners Home Series event that is taking place this weekend, July 10th through the 12th. So without further ado, let's get into our predictions. Alright, so now looking at our bracket, these are the 8 teams that will be playing in this weekend's New York Subliners Home Series event. Now going down the list here, there's maybe, I want to say 3, maybe 4 potential teams that could make the deep run into the bracket and even come home with the title this weekend. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Paris Legion currently sitting at 9th in the standings, and the Toronto Ultra over here in 10th. They are in 10th. So we've got the 9th going up against the 10th here. Now, the first time that I believe these guys played against each other was at the last event. So the Minnesota event, or no, the Paris Open event. They got to play against one another, and Toronto came out on top, if I am not mistaken. So I don't expect much to change, especially with Kleenex still staying within the Toronto roster and Paris continuing to struggle. So I'm going to give it to Toronto. I'm going to give them a 3-0, which I'm pretty sure they won the last series 3-1. And so I don't really think much is going to change, except this time I think Toronto sweeps them. Next, we've got Atlanta FaZe going up against the Los Angeles Guerrillas. FaZe, of course, being number 1 right now, while the Guerrillas are tied in a 3-way tie, actually, with Seattle and with Toronto. So, LA has really been making improvements. They've really been stepping up their game. They beat Chicago 2 events ago, and Atlanta has kind of been on a downfall. They've been going to Game 5 with everybody. So, Atlanta's biggest thing right now that is really hurting them is winning the hard points. So I feel like if they come out and they win Game 1, they definitely can steal Game 2. And if they have recovered from the absolute beating that they got from the Florida Mutineers on Hackney Yard in the Grand Finals, then they should be all right. But I'm going to say that LA comes out and they're going to take the first map, as Atlanta will continue to struggle with hardpoint. But then Atlanta is going to take the next 2 maps, and then Guerrillas are going to take map 4, forcing a map 5, and then Atlanta will clutch up and they will take Game 5 and continue to show the struggles that they have had the last 3-ish events that they have attended. Moving on now, we've got the London Royal Ravens, who are sitting pretty decently in 6th, going up against the Chicago Huntsmen, who are sitting in 3rd, right behind the Florida Mutineers. These guys, I feel like that this could be a pretty interesting match. London has said that they've been getting really good practice now against Atlanta, Chicago, and Dallas within the last 2 weeks of scrims. So I feel like that maybe now that they're starting to pick up on things and they're going to be a little bit better, not butter. But I still feel like that Chicago is going to be able to take this series pretty convincingly in 3-0 fashion. Nothing really else to be said. Chicago, personally, to me, is the best Respawn team right now, besides Florida, of course. Florida is really hitting strides right now, but I feel like as far as Respawn goes, those are the 2 best teams right now in the CDL, as far as Respawn goes. Prove me wrong. And then finally, to wrap up day number 1, we are going to have the New York Subliners, the home team, going up against the Minnesota Roca, as Benson would say. So, this series has all the potential. It really does. This series really could go the absolute distance. And so, with the... man, how do you choose in this one, you know? Minnesota now playing with Exceedo, so that might be hurting them Alex still out for some time being. So this could really hurt them, but I feel like Subliners aren't going to come out in a quick two-map fashion. They're going to take the first two maps pretty convincingly, and then Minnesota are going to bounce back and steal the domination, but then Subliners are going to walk away with the victory and end day one on a W and move on to play Chicago Huntsmen in the quarterfinals of their home series event. To kick off day number 2, we're going to have the Paris Legion going up against Los Angeles Guerrillas in the first knockout round match. Now, Paris, like I said, they've been struggling still, even though really on land they showed so much potential, and obviously, being online and everything now, it is a lot tougher for some of these teams that, have showed up on land, because we really thought, everybody, including myself at the start of the year, really thought Paris could be a really good team, and now they're sitting in 9th. So we've got the 9th and then the tied for last team going up here in the knockout round. But I don't feel like much is going to change. I feel like a 3-1 is in order for the Guerrillas. They're going to walk away with the victory and move on to the next round in the home series event for the New York Subliners. London Royal Ravens going up against the Minnesota Rocker. This also could be a really good match. This could be a really good S&D game. I feel like, both of these teams really have their strengths, and especially with Minnesota having Exceed on there. Exceed being an S&D kid now for some time now, and then everybody having their own individual strength. I feel like this could go the first map to the London Royal Ravens, the next two to Minnesota, and then games 4 and 5 going to the London Royal Ravens, knocking out the Minnesota Rocker of the New York Subliners event and being one of the lowest placings for the Minnesota Rocker team, who have shown potential all year, not just on land, but online as well. So this is a team that everybody thought was going to, be stealing, 2 events throughout the entire year, and have yet to win a single one. They've been in a couple grand finals, but they've yet to come home with a W. Next, in our first winners match of the day, we're going to see Toronto Ultra going up against Atlanta FaZe. Now, this is where things are going to start to get a little bit weird here. I'm going to start taking some very bold predictions here. So, Toronto comes out and they're going to take the first map against Atlanta. All right, they're going to come out hot. They're going to come out fast against Atlanta. They're going to try to counter their aggressiveness as to how fast and quick that Atlanta likes to play on most of their hardpoint maps. I feel like then Atlanta will bounce back and they will take the next 2 maps, and then Toronto will do the unthinkable and take the next 2 maps and win out the series 3-2 against the Atlanta FaZe and absolutely stun everybody. And move on now to our winners semifinals number 1. Moving on then to the second winners quarterfinal match. We're going to have the Chicago Huntsmen going up against the home series team of the New York Subliners. This still has all the potential to be a match. Like I said, this event really, they're not really, it's not really stacked, but you look at these teams individually, like a lot of these teams have the potential to take a lot of these games to the distance and make things interesting against these teams. Like I said with the previous one, Toronto Ultra and the Atlanta FaZe, that is a really good match right there, I feel like. I feel like that could be a sleeper match that a lot of people are going to think is just going to be a blowout by FaZe. But they've been having their struggles, and I feel like Toronto, with their new roster, are going to be able to capitalize on a lot of the small mistakes that FaZe make that normally they're able to pick up and be okay again with the mistakes that they've been making, and they're able to fix those quickly. But I feel like Toronto is going to capitalize on those mistakes that Atlanta tries to fix so quick, and they're just going to run Atlanta in the respawns, especially for Search. Maybe not so much, because it's a little bit different with the pacing and everything in the game, being that the game modes are a lot different. But back to the topic here, Chicago going up against the New York Subliners. I feel like Chicago comes out, they'll take the first map. Atlanta then bounces back and they take map 2. And then Chicago takes the third and the 4th map. And then move on to winners semifinals number 2. Then we have the first knockout round. We have the Atlanta FaZe going up against the Los Angeles Guerrillas. And then we'll feel like that the Atlanta FaZe will come out and they will get a quick and fast 3-0 against the Los Angeles Grizz. Excuse me, I'm having a moment here. My brain's kind of stopping here. And we will finally get to see the Chicago Huntsmen versus the Atlanta FaZe matchup that we have longed to see for oh so long. We wanted to see it on land, but we had to see it online, unfortunately. Then we have the knockout round 2 matchup going up between the New York Subliners and the London Royal Ravens. The Subliners will take the first 2 maps, and then in a very, what's the word I'm looking here? Dominant fashion. Okay, we'll just use that. I wanted to use like a different word. London will take map 3 to try to get some life into them, and then they will choke the 4th map, and Subliners will move on to the semifinals and put themselves in a guaranteed top 4 position at their own home series event. And then moving on to our semifinals, both of these matches really are interesting. Both of these matches are very interesting, and I feel like that they have a lot of potential in them. So first up, we've got Toronto Ultra coming from the winners bracket side, and only dropping 2 maps, both to Atlanta. And being that the Subliners are coming from the losers bracket, obviously, they are predicted to not do so well. I'm going to give the first map to them. So they come out, Mac and Temple drop 40, give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe kind of put Atlanta down their back heels, but then Atlanta comes out and they sweep the next 3 maps in almost dominant fashion. And then the long-awaited matchup that we have not got to see. Chicago Huntsmen going up against Atlanta FaZe. This match is going to a game 5. 100%. Personally, I feel like both teams with their individual struggles, really, neither of these teams should be in the spot that they are in this tournament. But because of the talent and the potential that this team has shown, both of these rosters are here because of that. They shouldn't be, but they are. So, Atlanta comes out, they'll take the first map. Chicago will then take the Search and Destroy and the Domination. Atlanta then will take the second hard point in the series, leading to a Game 5 in which we will see Atlanta clutch up and take the 5th map and knock out the Chicago Huntsmen and give us such a beautiful showing, a great display of what competitive Call of Duty is all about. And then the grand finals. Toronto Ultra and Atlanta FaZe. Atlanta has already played the Toronto Ultra and they lost 3-2. That was in our quarterfinals up here. This is my prediction, of course. So they lost to Toronto 3-2, but they're not going to try to let that happen. So they're going to come out and they're going to take the first map pretty convincingly, just like they did in the first series almost. Toronto will then steal the next 2 maps, and then Atlanta will take the 4th map, and then Toronto will take the 5th map and be crowned our champions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching this video on my predictions for this week's New York Subliners home series event. I appreciate everybody hanging out and getting my predictions into your head. So let me know what you guys think. Are there any matches you agree with, any you don't think? Who do you guys got winning? Who's your dark horse? Who's really going to underperform this week? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for hanging out as always. I'll see you guys then. Peace out.